Today I'm going to just read a little bit from a book called Come Let Us Adore Him by Paul David Tripp, and it's a daily Advent devotional, and I'm just going to read a little bit from the introduction so I don't spoil it if any of you fancy reading along too. It is a mind-boggling, hard to grasp, awesome story unlike any other story ever told. But what makes this story so wonderful and so important is not that its plot is way beyond anything you would have ever conceived. What makes this story vital to know and understand is that it is not a well-crafted fantasy. The thing that should make you stop in your tracks, activate your heart and mind, and fall to your knees is that this story is real. It took place in real time, at real locations, with real people. All human history was marching to the specific point in time when this story would unfold, and the implications of the events of this story reach to everyone who has lived since. This Christmas story is the story of stories. It is good to be familiar with the story of the gospel of Jesus Christ. But familiarity often does bad things to us. Often when we become familiar with things, we begin to take them for granted. When we are familiar with things, we tend to quit examining them. Often when we are familiar with things, we quit noticing them. When we are familiar with things, we tend not to celebrate them as once we did. Familiarity tends to rob us of our wonder. And here's what's important about this. What has captured the wonder of our hearts will control the way that we live. Sadly, many of us aren't gripped by the stunningly magnificent events and truths of the birth of Jesus anymore. Sadly, many of us are no longer gripped by wonder as we consider what this story tells us about the character and plan of God. Sadly, many of us are no longer humbled by what the incarnation of Jesus tells us about ourselves. We walk by the garden of the incarnation, but we don't see the roses of grace anymore. Our eyes have gone lazy and our hearts have grown cold. So I wrote this devotional with the prayer that God would use it to recapture your attention. I wrote it with hope that this amazing story would reactivate your awe. I hope that as you read, your heart will be surprised by things in this story you've never seen before, or maybe haven't seen in a very long time. I'm going to ask you to come with me, kneel down and look into that manger. I will ask you to look up and listen carefully to the song of the angels. I'm going to ask you to examine the wonder of the shepherds, and I'll help you to grasp how this story is meant to enliven, motivate, excite, and transform you. May the glory of the best gift ever recapture our hearts so that we really do come to adore him, and so that we will all live with a renewed appreciation for the grace that we have found in him. I love that sentence. Here's what's important about this. What has captured the wonder of our hearts will control the way we live. And it's my prayer for me as I read this and read the story in the Bible, and for you, that we might get a sense of the wonder of the Christmas story. And I know that as things are at the moment, we maybe have got a little bit more time on our hands where we haven't got events to plan or attend quite so much. And I hope that we can have a sense of this real story of Christmas, of how God designed and planned the birth of Jesus so that eventually we might be able to know him. Happy Christmas.